I'm not sure when I started using a stick instead of a normal pen for doing pen and wash, but ever since I started using it, I've just found it so freeing and expressive, and the marks a stick makes, and this is just a sharpened piece of apple tree that I'm using. Uh, it's kind of a joy to use. Without sounding too twee, it really is. It's a fun thing to do. What I'm drawing here is 3 cans of Pepsi Max. The cans have been slightly crushed and ready to go into be recycling. And I was looking at them on the table, and I actually thought that the 3 shapes together worked really well as a piece. And so I decided to uh, bring this out in a pen and wash image. So as you can see, I'm marking out the first can, trying to get the shape as accurate as I am. There's no pencil drawing on this image. It is purely this pen and ink technique that I'm using. I like to look for dark shapes, which, as you can see on the lid, the can pull, it's got a shadow, and it's got a nice deep dark shadow where the drink comes out, and I can use that to put in first and then decide the position of the can pull. I'm drawing not exactly with the tip of this sharpened stick, more like the side, and in doing so I'm able to get some quite tight lines, but also they're quite loose as well, and the thickness varies as you sort of use the stick. I do sometimes tend to twist the stick as well while I'm using it to help get a different piece of the stick on the paper as I draw. I draw these shapes by eye and by kind of looking for where edges of things are in comparison to the edge of the first object. So to draw the lid of this can, I've looked at the negative shape and worked out that the 2 cans are very much the same height. The third can will be a bit higher because it is in the image, but as you see again, I'm using that nice dark shape of the opening to the drink as a starter to put the lid in. Nice diagonal line down here. Again, using the stick, and the more pressure the more ink comes off the stick, and you see I've got a lovely line coming into the can going round the bottom again. I tend to use straight lines to describe things. I might go in a bit later and sort of rough the line up to make it look a bit more smooth, but straight lines are so much easier to use, and if you use little gaps rather between your lines, you can start to get some nice sort of circular affairs going on, if that's the right term. Drawing the bottom of the second can now where it hits the table. I'm not going to put the red placemat in this image, and here's an example of using the second can as a reference for the first can. I drew the first can as far as I could, but I needed a reference to put the bottom of the can in, and the bottom of the can lines up very much with the bottom of the middle can, and I needed to get that line as accurate as I could to make sure that the middle can was the right shape and size, and so I put the bottom of the first can in at the end of doing the middle can. Again, I'm doing the same thing with the end can. I'm looking at the negative shape that's produced from the red placemat between the 2 cans, trying to make sure that shape looks correct on my image. You see I've drawn a straight line there to mark the base of the black on the can, but the image isn't a straight line, it's a more curved line, but the straight line is working so well for me there. You can sort of match and hold your drawing stick against your image to try and get the right angles, and then bring that across your page and and put your angles in like that. But I do like to do this as freehand as possible, because I think the line work that this creates, where you make a mistake and you fix a mistake with the ink, it really makes the drawing stand out and work really, really well. And this doesn't have to be an accurate drawing, and it's not completely accurate, but the cans look so convincing, which is good. Again, another nice dark shape that I can put in where the drinks can opening is. I've just put in a light sort of mark. I'll probably come back and darken that at some point. And just trying to get the cracks and the bends of the can. That lovely dark mark that came off the stick there, completely accidental, but it's in such a nice place that I probably won't worry about doing anything with it. And in fact, I'm just going to use the extra ink that line produced to scratch in detail. And on that third can, that last line was the back of the can from a crease where it's been crushed. So able to put those lines in on the image. The difficult bit is obviously getting the logos and insignia onto the can, and I'm using the shapes of the logo to help me find the lines of the can where it's been crushed into its odd looking shape, and I can see that rather than being a circle for the logo, I've got a strange shape which I've put in, and the max, the word max, is also so distorted that I'm able to put that in with, I suppose, a certain degree of accuracy, but also the word max is describing the distortion of the can where it's being crushed. So it really is it's a fun and exciting thing to do. I'm just adding the sort of indication of wording that's underneath the word max, and then with that I'm able to pull that line across that shows where the can is dented. The food safety information, got a lot of food safety information these days. Can't say that I understand it, and I don't think it puts people off drinking high sugary drinks unless you're really into watching these sort of things, but yeah, I thought I'd put that in there because it's in the picture anyway. And working from left to right, so I don't smudge the ink, I'm now putting in the bitter logo that's on the edge of the can there. Again, it's distorted and shaped funny because of the way the can has been crushed, and so that helps me to put in that final line on that first can. I do like inky shadows. It's so cool to be able to use the side of a stick and just drag a wonderful shadow away from your ink drawing, and there's something about doing this that suddenly the drawing starts to really come off the page and look really, really cool, for want of a better word. And I'm going to take this shadow across the whole of the page, really, to link those cans together with like nice heavy shadow along the bottom of the image. The ink does dry on the page when you use the stick like this. It does dry very quickly, and so you don't get the smudging that I think perhaps I would do. These are just preliminary smudges at the moment. I think I will go back in and do a bit more to those shadows just to make the cans really pop and to pull out what I think the shadow is, which is the lid, the drink opening lid on the top of the packet. Again, going in and using the word max and all the sort of lettering underneath that to help build up a picture of how that can has been distorted by being crushed and being made ready to go into recycling. It's quite handy having lettering on packaging when you're trying to do this, because you can find your way through the object's kind of shape, just by looking at where those letters have become distorted. And there you can see we've got the word max in now, pretty accurate to the shape, I think, and some little lettering. I'm troubled at the moment by the little lettering on the can, the second can sort of to the far right there. Not quite sure how I'm going to handle that yet, but I'm going to put an indication that it's there, just to remind me that I've got to think about that when I come to put some probably going to put pastel on this, but when I come to put that on, I might need to think about that. Just copying some text that's around the rim of the can. All those strange bits about multi-pack, do not resell, and all those things that have to be put on packaging. I don't know why, because they come in multi-packs and you just can't not buy them in a multi-pack. So I don't understand. Back in with that lovely dark shadow, using the side of the stick as a pen, building up that to be nice and dark, to really bring out the bottom of the can. You can see the crease of the can is actually part of that shadow, which is quite nice. Again, putting in some more wording on the first can, what's visible. In the picture itself, the writing is kind of reversed out, so it's white against the dark of the can. And on this image, I'm just drawing it in literally in black ink. I'm not worrying too much about making it sort of a white piece of text on a black background. Once you've got your shapes in and you feel quite confident, I'm, as you can see now, going in and adding some little details to the tops of the cans, any sort of line work that I feel is going to work. Another logo on that third can. Again, that the logo is distorted because of the crushing that's happened to the can, and I'm able to help describe that way it's been crushed by doing that. A few words, of course, around the top of the the can. Yeah, I'm really not sure why we have to be told that it's a part of a multi-pack. Do not resell on its own. I don't know. The world, in my opinion, has gone mad for this sort of worded messaging that has to be put on the stuff. Maybe I'm wrong, I don't know. Edge of the third can, then just the big Pepsi Max logo, just a little bit on the edge there, so I've drawn that in, and the can sort of sizing and fluid levels, put that down. And then there's another piece of weird white text here that I've got to kind of indicate somehow, and so I'm just using some black line and squiggles to suggest that white writing is on the can, and also some more food information that here in England we go mental for, to tell people about food, what's in it, what's it going to be. I just, yeah, a lot of information. And finally there's an X from the word max, again describing the shape and the dent that's on that can. You can see the logo in the middle can is not a full logo, it's a part of the logo. And I'm just going to go through and darken these lovely shadows, that little mark on that first can, just indicating that there's a lid that's been lifted on the used can. Making sure the edges of the top of the can are sort of there. There's a very definite lip to all of these things. I'm moving through the image now. I'm just making marks where I think they're needed. I'm not exactly looking at the image and thinking, yes, there's one that's needed there. I'm looking and thinking, would it look better if I put a mark in? And that's why you see the stick move about. I'm just testing, would that a line work there, and would it make it better? Also looking for dark shadows there. You can see I'm just putting a nice dark inky line in there, and then one that's not so inky next to it. Reloading the stick. I think this is the exciting bit now, because now I can really put in some nice, I hate the word juicy, but some nice juicy darks onto the image to show that where the light and is acting on the folds that have happened, because the can has been crushed in quite a particular way. Probably do some grey marks. By grey marks I mean kind of some dry brush, you would call it, watercolour, but making sure that the ink is not wet on the stick, just at a stage where it's soaking into the stick, and lightly bringing lightly bringing the stick down to colour in the dark and black sides of these cans. was going to paint it in black paint or use black paint, I was always had the intention of adding this sort of grey shading, if you like, as opposed to completely dark ink. And you can see where the ink is wet as well, still wet on the page, it does pull into those lovely shadows. It does help to give that feeling of the can being abused is the wrong word, but the can being crushed, and just filling in those dark areas of the can where we need to make sure that's what we're seeing there, that dark, lovely dark area. And just some little lines coming out of the shadow just to indicate that something might be a bit amiss with this can. It's not a proper shadow. It's kind of a shadow that's showing up all the defects in the broken, crushed can. Again, you can nick ink from your picture as well, so if you've got some big puddles of wet ink, roll your stick around in them and move the ink around on the page. Don't have to reload every time. A bit of Pepsi Max there on the edge of the can. And more dark marks in the crease of that can, because it will be reflecting a shadow or onto the can. And we're getting close now, I think, to moving on to, I think we've probably used some pastel on this image. There we go, just again darkening areas with a light sort of dry stick. I think I'm going to call this a dry stick effort over that can. And this is the bit that's going to make it pop now. So I'm using some orange pastel for the sort of the reddier parts of the logo. You don't get to see the whole logo, so I'm being very careful to just put in orange where, oh dear, just putting in orange where I need to on the image, on the logo in that can there. May have to go back and darken some of this up when I've finished, put some more ink or some more pastel, darker pastel on there. And as you can see, that just by adding just a little bit of pastel, a little bit of colour, the image is already starting to really sing against that really dark black ink that I put on at the start. And I'm not colouring in with the pastel, I'm more pressing it into the page where it's needed. And this is just cartridge paper, this isn't pastel paper, so there's a good chance that some of this pastel will come off when I close this is my sketchbook, adding the blue of the logo now, and the blue and the orange working so well together there to just superb colours. These are sort of professional quality pastels from Sienna. This is I suppose a cobalt blue, and I do love putting blue into shadows. Jet black ink shadows are great, but they can look a bit much, so I do like to put a little bit of blue pastel in. I found it really kind of lifts the shadow, otherwise the shadow just seems too dark. It needs some sort of light reflected in it. Adding a sort of a grey colour to the rim of all these cans now, because that top lip of the rim is in shadow, and I'm looking for reflected light. So I'm not colouring in the top of the can grey, I'm looking for the reflected light on the top of the can and putting that in. That's why there's still some white space on that can. That would be your can colour really. The grey reflection that I'm putting on there is really reflected sort of shadows and light that's on the top of the can. Very exciting sort of process to do, so look for those shapes. I'm really a shape painter and drawer. I don't draw cans. I'm looking at the shapes that that there. I think I would have got quite bored just drawing a can, if I'm honest. Just using that grey again on the bottom of the can, because there was a definite darker tone than the can in there. A little bit of sort of indigo type colour now, just to add to those shadows that the inks produce. These just sort of underneath the can where it's been squished and broken, and just putting them in there to indicate where that darkness is. Like I say, I'm not going to colour these cans in completely the colour they're meant to be, which is dark all over. I think it just will ruin the image. There'll be too much dark there and not enough interest to keep the viewer looking and wandering their eye around. So most of the can is going to be white, with an indication that there's a kind of a darker colour there somewhere. And I'm using the pastel in the direction of the way the can is kind of crushed, the way the metal is reflecting light, the bendiness of it. I'm trying to draw the bendiness of the broken can in there with this indigo charcoal, not charcoal, pastel, and just adding at the end some last sort of dashes and dots of line. Again, just where I think it needs it, not exactly where it might be on the image itself, the photographic image, but just where I think sometimes it needs a little bit of colour to bring the whole image together. And then some white pastel going on now, just to although the image is white, I've put lots of lovely darks on this, so this white pastel, although you can't see it on the film, on the actual image itself you can see this sort of raised white chalk dust that does have a lovely sort of effect on the can to make it feel a bit more real, I guess is the word I'm going to use there. Try not to overdo it though, that's the trick here. You can go a bit nuts with a white pastel in your hand, so I'm trying very hard just to adjust those tones carefully, rather than going in with the black ink, using the indigo and grey again, just to redefine some of those real lovely darks around the lid and of the cans. As you can see, it's just a single sweepy mark, and it just makes such a difference. That can's now got an indentation in the top. You can pull and this is I guess a white colour, just pull it down over some of the other colours as well, just to help it seal into the image. And I think we're getting close now to finishing this piece and taking a step back just to assess if there's anything else I need to do, any more darks that need adding, are the tones correct on the cans, are they reading as cans. It's good to do that, just to take a step back at the end of your process and just go, well, hold on a second, what have I forgotten? And what I've forgotten is the green colour that's on the food packaging warning, so I've put a little bit of that and gone back over the indigo ink and on the image. There was some more sort of creases in the can, so I'm using the indigo pastel to indicate a few more of those where the can's been twisted, and I think that will do. I think that's my image of 3 drinks cans on a table. Thanks for watching.